All right. Thank you, sir. All right, are we ready for the jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, you have a seat. Okay. Your next question?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Marks, what work were you asked to do in this case?
I was asked to bring my years of experience in the entertainment industry and look at the damage that the op-ed of 2018 created in Johnny Depp's career and his life and his reputation.
What work did you do to determine whether Mr. Depp's reputation had been damaged by the op-ed?
Well, again, I view the op-ed and the fallout through almost 50 years in the business. And what I did was I read the pleadings in the case, the deposition transcripts, the articles, the pleadings, all of the paperwork in this case, which is voluminous.
Based on the analysis you've done and your expertise in the entertainment industry, have you formed any opinions in this case?
Yes.
Generally speaking, what is your opinion?
My general opinion is that the op-ed damaged Mr. Depp, created a cancel situation, if you will, harmed his reputation and his ability to get work in Hollywood industry.
Objection.
Hold on, sir. Yes.
I thought that, could we approach?
Sure.
Mr. Marks, do you have experience working with companies looking to engage actors to market or advertise their products?
Yes.
And what's that experience?
Well, virtually every company I work for, they are engaging actors to advertise their products. Most of the time, those products are TV shows or streaming series or feature films that all involve product spin-offs and derivatives, and sometimes they are just products and spokespeople getting together. But yes, I have experience in hiring a star to be the face of your product.
What types of things do companies consider when they're looking at using actors in their marketing or advertising?
Well, as you can imagine, they consider reputation. This is a capitalist society, and they're looking to make money. They want to add value to their investment. They want actors who have reputations that will bring eyeballs to the screen, bodies in the seats. They're looking for added value, not negativity.
Do you have experience negotiating agreements for actors to play a certain role in a film?
Oh yes, as I explained, I negotiate deals with actors to play roles in films. And
what's the significance of the actor in the starring role in the context of a feature film?
The actor in the starring role becomes the face of the film, the product, the series. That actor is synonymous with the product. And again, in hiring that actor or actress, you want a reputation that supports the value that you've spent on creating the product. You might say that Pirates of the Caribbean is Johnny Depp and vice versa. That's the importance of hiring a star.
What aspects of an actor's reputation might impact their ability to get hired by brands or studios?
Well, again, on the other side of the coin, you wouldn't want to hire an actor who has negativity following them. You wouldn't want to pay to actually bring your brand down, your movie. And so that's very important, and especially in the last 5 years with the Me Too movement, you wouldn't want negativity hiring an actor who, quote unquote, had been canceled.
Is there anything in particular that might prevent an actor from getting hired by a brand or a studio?
Well, I mean, we're talking about illegal activity, a criminal record, but right now, the pinnacle of negativity in Hollywood is being accused of domestic abuse, sexual abuse, violence, and what we've seen is almost immediately terminations and cancellations for the investors, to the people who create that product, to move away from that negativity.
I think you mentioned the Me Too movement. What's your understanding of what the Me Too movement is?
My understanding of the Me Too movement is that finally society is listening to the victim, giving the victim of domestic abuse, sexual abuse, the benefit of the doubt. And there has been a shift in our society from not doing that to now the victim gets the benefit of the doubt until there's too much doubt. And to me, that's the Me Too movement. One person can come forward and accuse Harvey Weinstein, and another person can come forward, and another. That's the Me Too part of it. But they get the benefit of the doubt, whereas in the past, the victim didn't have that benefit.
What impact has the Me Too movement had on how Hollywood conducts business?
It, in my many decades in the business, Hollywood has changed and morphed, but never as quickly as to respond to the Me Too movement that started in 2017. When I started in the business, every contract for an actor or someone involved in a movie had a morals clause that you did certain things and you could be fired for it. They wanted to protect their brand. Before the Me Too movement, that morals clause was fading out. People with leverage, people said, wait a second, you just can't get rid of us because you think this or that. With the Me Too movement, Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, if you will, the morals clause has come back, and it is a demanded feature in every entertainment employment agreement, because the studios want that verbiage. They want those rights so that they can act quickly and decisively when there is a claim.
Mr. Marks, do you have any experience working on a project where an actor was accused of domestic abuse or sexual violence?
Yes.
What was that experience?
I did some of the production legal work on a film called All the Money in the World. It was about the life of the Gettys, J. Paul Getty. And J. Paul Getty was played by Kevin Spacey. He acted in the part, he finished his role, he was paid, and then these Me Too accusations came out. And immediately, my client, in conjunction with Sony, they made a decision to take him out of the movie, and Christopher Plummer was hired. They reshot all his scenes and seamlessly cut them in to the movie. And if you see All the Money in the World, you won't know that Kevin Spacey was ever in it. So I had that personal experience. And then coincidentally, when that happened, I was also doing work for MRC, which produces House of Cards, and a very successful series. And he was the star of it. And he was immediately cut out, and everything was redone to get rid of the notion that Hollywood would support an abuser after the Me Too movement. And then because I was in the mix of all of it, I also know that Kevin Spacey had completed another movie for Netflix. And unlike All the Money in the World, they couldn't reshoot it. And it sits on the shelf, a movie about Gore Vidal that was finished but has never seen the light of day.
What's your understanding of why these companies wanted Kevin Spacey removed from those projects?
Can you repeat the question?
What's your understanding of why these companies wanted Kevin Spacey removed from those projects?
These companies, as I've said, they wanted Kevin Spacey removed because they didn't want the negativity. They want anyone removed so that they can get a return on their investment in our society, so that they are not seen as being in the old generation where women were not given the benefit of the doubt, where victims were not given the benefit of the doubt. And a switch has been turned, and certainly by 2017.
Are there certain types of companies that are particularly sensitive to these kinds of allegations made by women in light of the Me Too movement?
Well, I would say the bigger the company, the bigger the budgets, they're all sensitive. But at the pinnacle of sensitivity are the family-friendly companies like Disney. They're particularly sensitive, not in a general way, but in a very specific way.
Mr. Marks, are you familiar with the op-ed Ms. Heard published in the Washington Post on December 18th, 2018?
Yes.
What's your understanding of how that op-ed was received in Hollywood?
My understanding of how that op-ed was received in Hollywood.
Oh, is it I'm sorry, sir. Yes.
Is this his personal understanding, his expert understanding? It seems like if it's his personal understanding, it's not relevant.
I'm asking Mr. Marks based on his nearly 50 years in the entertainment
I'll
industry.
overrule the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor.
As I've said before, I am a member of the Hollywood community. That op-ed, for the first time, is in a mainstream publication called the Washington Post. This is a flagship journal, if you will, of American news. We're not talking about a trade paper. We're not talking about a rag. We're talking about the Washington Post. And it is geared to Hollywood. It says, 2 years ago, when I was getting my divorce, Amber Heard is saying, I was the abuser, and you didn't, Hollywood, you stood up for my abuser, not for
Objection,
me,
Your
the
Honor.
victim.
Objection. Now he's mischaracterizing the document.
I think he's expressing his understanding of how that was perceived.
I'll overrule the objection. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your
What I'm saying is Hollywood got the subject matter of the op-ed loud and clear. Amber Heard was calling out Hollywood for supporting since 2016, supporting her abuser, and she felt the wrath of Hollywood. She was calling them out to do something. In the Washington Post, and on the eve of her biggest film, a big film for Hollywood, the publicity machine was in high gear. There was lots of publicity and news out there. This was the height of her fame, and she used it at that moment to call Hollywood out. They, in my opinion, as a member of Hollywood, they heard that plea loud and clear, and it also got her publicity for her movie. I don't think that in my perception, the people in Hollywood didn't see that as a coincidence, that date. So yeah, in Hollywood, I think the message was received that she was sending.
Mr. Marks, do you have an understanding of Mr. Depp's reputation in Hollywood with respect to whether or not he's on time to his film sets?
Yes.
What's your understanding?
Hollywood has a history of putting up with major artists and major stars' idiosyncratic behaviors. We've always had divas like Marilyn Monroe who would stay in her trailer for half a day. Johnny Depp has a reputation of being Johnny Depp, and when you hire Johnny Depp, you get all of Johnny Depp, and that includes being late. And fortunately, in Hollywood, because of the budgets and the box office, you can budget for lateness. You can have second unit. You can have other shots. You have padding in budgets. You have insurance for accidents, but Hollywood knows Mr. Depp's reputation, and I heard someone say Hollywood puts up with diva and drugs. They only do that when money's involved and big stars are involved and artistry is involved.
Mr. Marks, did you have an understanding of Mr. Depp's overall reputation in Hollywood prior to the publication of the December 2018 op-ed?
I would say that Johnny Depp was one of the few major actors in Hollywood who managed to keep most of his personal life personal. Kept himself shrouded, if you will, a bit. And his reputation, preceded him as a major artist in Hollywood. But what also marked him in this business is that he was congruent. He was likable. He was one of the guys, and I never heard any complaints, if you will.
Do you have an opinion about the impact of the publication of the op-ed on Mr. Depp's reputation in Hollywood?
It's devastating. It's the type of claim, the Me Too claim of sexual violence, domestic abuse, that has canceled a list of actors. Chris Noth recently. I just read something about Frank Langella. We know newscasters, Les Moonves, head of CBS. Now Johnny Depp is in their ranks. It's devastating.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
All right, cross-examination, Mr. Nadelhoff.
Good afternoon. Your rate in this case is $975 per hour, is that right?
That's correct.
And you've never charged that higher rate in any other case, isn't that right?
I've charged near that amount,
But never that high, correct?
that's correct.
Okay. How much have you received for this case?
I'd have to look at my billing. During my deposition, the attorney who deposed me asked me the same question. I said I would look it up. I did during lunch, and then she never got back to it again. I don't remember how much it was then, and I don't have the figures now.
And you don't know how many hours you worked on this case?
I would get, again, I'd be guessing, and I don't know if you want me to guess. I have a full-time transactional practice. This is a very small part of my practice.
Okay. Now, you said you worked for Disney for less than a year, right?
I worked for Disney about a year.
Yeah, and that was in 1990, right?
Yes.
So that was 32 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay. And you worked at Greenberg Trowering from 2004 to 2006, is that right?
That's correct.
Your leaving was a mutual decision, was it not?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Mr. Depp still has an endorsement deal with Dior, correct?
I understand that, yes.
Okay. And he's had that endorsement deal since 2015, isn't that right?
I believe he's had the endorsement deal for a while, and I think he still has it.
Right. And Dior hasn't dropped Mr. Depp, correct?
As far as I know, Dior has not dropped him.
All right. And Mr. Depp did not have a contract for Pirate 6, isn't that right?
As far as I know, there is no contract for Pirate 6.
Right. And all the documents you've looked at, you looked at all the documents in this case, and you've not seen a contract for Pirate 6, right?
That's my memory of the documents. There was no contract for Pirate 6.
And in all the documents you looked at, you didn't see a text saying, Mr. Depp got the contract for Pirate 6 for $22.5 million, right?
Objection asked and answered.
Overruled.
I didn't see paperwork on an agreement for Pirates of the Caribbean 6.
So not an email, not a text, not any written document about Pirate 6, correct?
Objection asked and answered.
I'll sustain that objection. Next question. And you don't know one way or the other whether Mr. Depp will be in Pirates of Caribbean 6. You don't have a crystal ball, is that right?
Objection, speculation.
He's an expert.
I'll allow it. No, go ahead. Overruled. Go ahead. You can answer, sir.
Well, as an expert, of course, I don't have a crystal ball. But as an expert, I think Disney will do everything possible to try to put him back in Pirates, but not under this cloud.
Okay. You would agree that there was negative publicity about Mr. Depp before the op-ed, correct?
Yes.
You know that Ms. Heard made her accusations public starting in May of 2016, right?
Yes.
And Hollywood knew about that, right?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Depp still had movies after May of 2016, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you would agree that there was negative publicity about Mr. Depp being publicly drunk before the op-ed, correct?
There was, I agree with the proposition that there was negative publicity before the op-ed. The op-ed was something different.
And you agree, is it in 2014, there was an article in The Guardian that said apparently drunk Johnny Depp cut off at Hollywood Film Award ceremony. Would you agree with that?
Again, I don't remember reading The Guardian, and I don't remember that particular incident, but I'll take you at your word.
And you remember in looking through all the documents that you saw an article that Johnny Depp allegedly showed up drunk to movie premiere, reports say, right? That was in 2017.
I think I've testified that there is certainly Johnny Depp behavior and negativity out there. Yes.
And that a family production studio like Disney wouldn't want to be associated with, correct?
Again, you're talking about a very specific, series of 5 films that earn billions of dollars. And there is a line in Hollywood, as I've said, they'll put up with divas and drugs to make money. But now we've drawn a line in Hollywood at the domestic and sexual abuse.
And looking through the documents, you saw articles in June of 2018 that said vodka for breakfast, 72-hour drug binges, and spending sprees that beggar belief. You saw that?
Again, I know these articles exist. I know they're not in the Washington Post. I don't know what article you're referring to, who wrote it, what publication it was in. But I know that those articles exist.
And you'd agree that before the op-ed, Mr. Depp had a run of movie flops, wouldn't you agree?
Every actor has, ups and downs. Mr. Depp, his career's been decades long.
You would agree that in January of 2015, there was an article that said Johnny Depp is on his way to becoming the most overpaid actor in Hollywood.
Again, you'd have to show me the article, but I don't doubt that some commentator trying to trade on being a smarty pants wrote that.
And you'd agree that there was another article in 2015 that says, quote, has Johnny Depp become Hollywood's biggest joke?
I don't know. Netflix has a whole festival going now. Netflix is a joke.
And you'd agree that there is an article in Business Insider from 2015 that says Johnny Depp has his 5th box office bomb in a row.
If that's what it said, it said. Are you just going to keep reading this?
This is Mr. Depp's reputation. That's what you're talking about in terms of Hollywood, correct? And in 2016, December of 2016, there's an article that says, quote, Johnny Depp is Hollywood's most overpaid actor for the 2nd year in a row. Did you recall reading that?
I don't know, was that written by the second underpaid actor?
And you would agree that before the op-ed, there was negative publicity for Mr. Depp about assassinating President Trump. Would you agree?
No, I missed that one.
You didn't see an article in the New York Times that said Johnny Depp flirts with idea of Trump assassination, then apologizes?
Again, Johnny Depp talks with irony and panache, and I don't particularly remember that. I have a lot of stuff in front of me.
Disney wouldn't want to be involved with somebody who's calling for the assassination of the president, would it?
I'm sure after those articles, Johnny Depp was involved in major studio projects.
Do you know one way or the other whether Mr. Depp was involved in major studio projects after June 23rd, 2017?
I think, again, I haven't quoted his IMDb page to memory, but he was in an animated film called Sherlock Gnomes. I think it was released, Paramount is one of the producers. I think it was released in 2017.
Would you agree that before the op-ed there was negative publicity for Mr. Depp about punching a crew member on a film set?
I heard about that.
So that's people who work in Hollywood that Mr. Depp had an accusation of assault, correct?
I heard about it, yes.
And would you agree that there were stories about Mr. Depp drinking heavily on the set of Pirates 5?
There were lots of stories that came out, and I'm sure that was one of them.
And those stories came out in 2016 and 2017, before the op-ed, right?
Again, you'd have to show me a timeline, but I'll take your word that there were articles written in various rags or trade public.
Is the New York Times a rag? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying the New York Times is a rag. What I'm saying is, at the height of the Me Too movement, we have this op-ed directed at Hollywood, and in the Hollywood I know, the rest of the stuff is background noise.
Now, and Pirates 5 did not make as much money in the box office as the prior Pirates movies did. Isn't that true?
That's true. It only made about $800 million.
It made less, though, than the first 4, correct?
Yeah, and any company would want to have a box office hit that made $800 million.
Now, can you put up Defendant's Exhibit 99, please? And if you could blow it up. Now, you said the Me Too movement started in 2017. Is that what you're saying?
It actually started long before that, but it picked up steam to what we now call the Me Too movement in 2017.
Okay, and do you recognize this article from Dan Wooten that says, how can J.K. Rowling be genuinely happy casting wife-beater Johnny Depp in the new Fantastic Beasts film?
Yes, this article is in the UK Sun, which came to prominence by publishing topless women on page 3.
And the article came out on April 27th, 2018, correct?
I haven't skimmed through this, but I'll take your word for it.
And I think what you're trying to say was that the Sun was a rag, so no one would pay any attention to it. Is that what you're trying to say?
I'm saying the Sun is the Sun, and it's in the UK. And what this article is repeating stuff from 2016, repeating all the stuff that you might say should be all past history after the divorce. It's one Wooten's opinion in a newspaper that's claimed to fame as page 3 women topless, and yeah.
And Mr. Depp sued the Sun over this, right?
What's that?
Mr. Depp sued the Sun in the UK about this article, right?
As far as I know, he wanted to clear his name. That's right.
And Mr. Depp, that lawsuit occurred in 2020, correct? It was tried in 2020.
I believe so. Yeah.
And there were accusations of abuse that came out based on that lawsuit, correct?
As far as I know, the accusations were all old news and predated much. Yeah, I mean, this is a 2018 article, and in 2020, they probably were rehashing it.
And the old news that was coming out in 2018, that would also affect Mr. Depp's reputation, correct?
Again, I've tried to draw a line, the line that Hollywood draws between the Me Too movement and starting in 2017 and the gossip and the claims back and forth. I mean, there was also press about Amber Heard being an abuser in those years. There was also the other side of the coin.
But the op-ed that didn't mention Mr. Depp at all and didn't mention any accusations that what happened to her, that's what caused Mr. Depp all his reputational harm? That's what you're saying?
Well, I don't agree that this article was not about
Did it mention Mr. Depp? That's what I asked you.
Well, does she have another husband who abused her?
But did it talk at all about Mr. Depp's abuse?
Objection, Your Honor. He's tried to answer the first question, which was not exactly what the second question was that he re-asked. He had asked it to be permitted to
ask your question. We'll go from there.
The op-ed article didn't mention any specific abuse by Mr. Depp towards Amber Heard, correct?
The only name is this is Amber Heard telling her story that started in 2016 when she was domestically abused and ignored.
Now, there were headlines about the UK trial, correct?
I'm sure there were, yes.
Like, let's burn Amber text allegedly sent by Johnny Depp about X read in court?
I didn't hear you.
Let's burn Amber text allegedly sent by Johnny Depp about X read in court.
Yeah.
And there's a headline from July 19th, 2020 that said, quote, Hollywood nervously awaits fallout from explosive Johnny Depp trial. So Hollywood was following the case, correct?
Yeah. When was that headline?
In 2020.
2020. Yeah, look, Johnny Depp is a decades-long fixture in Hollywood, and people were following something across the pond. You know, we thought we kind of got rid of the UK in 1776, but they were still following it, absolutely.
I mean, Mr. Depp thought enough about this article to have a 3-week trial in the UK, correct?
Objection. Calls for speculation about what Mr. Depp thought.
I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
There was a 3-week trial in the UK based on this article by Dan Wooten, correct?
I think I said Mr. Depp finally had enough, and he sued to clear his name.
Okay, could I approach, Your Honor?
All right. You want it?
Mr. Marks, you testified that in the UK case, Mr. Depp was looking to clear his name, correct?
That's my assumption, yes.
And yes or no, did Mr. Depp clear his name through that lawsuit?
I wasn't in the UK, and I'm not going to opine on that. That's not what I've been engaged to talk about.
You don't know one way or the other whether Mr. Depp cleared his name through that lawsuit?
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered.
I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
You understand, can you please put up Defendant's Exhibit 115? In looking through the documents, did you see headlines from October 25th, 2018, almost 2 months before the op-ed, that Mr. Depp would not be in Pirate 6?
I saw that there was speculation in different publications, none quoting a Disney executive, if you will, none being definitive.
Okay.
And by the way, I can't see where's this article from. I just see the headline.
DailyMail.com.
So the Daily Mail is a UK publication?
All right, let's move. I mean, do you know or not?
Do I know what?
Do you know if it's a UK publication or not?
I think that the Daily Mail is, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Now, did you review the deposition testimony in this case of the Walt Disney corporate designee?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall that the corporate designee testified that Disney produced all documents related to its business relationship with Mr. Depp, including considering Mr. Depp for any work with Disney or future Pirates films, and she did not recall seeing the op-ed or any documents referring to the op-ed in that production of documents?
I read the deposition. I don't recall seeing the op-ed in what Disney produced. What I do recall is that the person giving that deposition for Disney really had no contact with Jerry Bruckheimer or Sean Bailey. It just was someone that Disney put up who didn't know anything, is what I took.
And you
from his
understand,
deposition.
you're a lawyer, right? You understand that a corporate designee is supposed to be in the shoes of the corporation talking for Disney, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. I think that's outside the scope of his expertise in this case.
Overruled. Okay.
I understand that that's what the corporate designee is supposed to be, but when I read that they are not in
That's what-
touch with,
that
when
was the
they're not
question.
in touch with the president of the company, it gives me pause.
So Disney itself represented through this witness that it did not have the op-ed in any of its files, correct?
I don't remember that passage in the deposition, but I can't remember. She certainly did not quote the op-ed or produce the op-ed or talk about the op-ed.
Now,
But in Hollywood, actions sometimes speak much louder than words.
and did you recall that that same corporate designee said that Pirate 6 is still possibly in development?
Until Disney says it's not in development, it's in development.
Okay. And can we put up Defendants Exhibit 134? And you see this is from November 5th, 2020.
And where's this from? Some rogue website? Where's this from?
InsideTheMagic.com.
Okay.
Okay. And this says Disney reportedly scraps plans for Depp's Pirates of the Caribbean 6 return, and that was on November 5th, 2020, correct?
Assuming that this is a correct copy of this random website, that's what it says. They're not quoting the head of production. It's not a statement by Disney, but that's what this woman, Rebecca Barton, says.
Well, 2 years after the op-ed, it was still a question as to whether Mr. Depp was going to be in Pirate 6.
There was no contract for Mr. Depp to be in Pirates 6, but he was Pirates, and there would always be that question until Pirates is produced or until Disney says otherwise.
And November 2020 was at the same time as all the publicity surrounding the UK case, correct?
I think the UK judgment came out in November 2020.
And this article came out 3 days after the judgment, correct?
If the judgment came out on the 2nd, this is 3 days later in, what's this again, moviemagic.com?
Correct.
By Rebecca, Barton.
Could I approach, Your Honor?
All right.
Now, isn't it true that you don't recall when you first read the op-ed?
As I sit here today, I don't recall when I first read it.
It wasn't a big deal to you. You didn't read it in 2018, correct?
I have a wife, 2 kids, a full-time job. I don't remember.
Okay. And you have no idea when you first read it? I just want to make sure I understand that.
Objection, asked and answered, Your Honor.
I sustain the
Look,
objection.
I wasn't
I'll
at this.
sustain the objection. Next question.
Okay.
I sustain the objection.
Okay.
Next question.
Now, you, as an expert in the entertainment field, do you know any actresses whose careers have gotten better after making accusations of a domestic abuse against an actor in Hollywood?
I think that the taint sticks and to both sides, and I can't think of any actresses who have prevailed and who've been canceled.
Do you know of any actresses whose careers have gotten better after making accusations of domestic abuse against a man in Hollywood?
I haven't been asked to opine on that, but I certainly will look into it. I don't think that this is something.
The answer is no, right? You don't know.
Again, I assume that.
So yes or no? Do you know or not?
Thought her career would get better by bringing this out. I don't know.
All right, thank you. I have nothing further.
All right, redirect.
Mr. Marks, you were asked a series of questions about a number of publications and publicity related to Mr. Depp by Mr. Nadelhoff. Do you recall those questions?
He asked a lot of questions about a lot of articles.
And, sir, based on your experience in the entertainment industry, do you have an understanding of what types of publications carry the most weight in Hollywood?
The publications that carry the most weight in Hollywood, in my opinion, after all these decades, are Variety, Hollywood Reporter, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, New York Times. Those are the publications.
And Mr. Nadelhoff asked you a number of questions about certain headlines related to Mr. Depp and various news coverage related to Mr. Depp. Do you have an opinion about the impact of those articles that you looked at with Mr. Nadelhoff on cross-examination on Mr. Depp's reputation in Hollywood?
Again, I don't remember all the articles. What I do know is that Johnny Depp had always had articles about him, and that didn't change the baseline. If you had a big project and it had a role for Johnny Depp, that didn't change the baseline.
Is your opinion about the op-ed misheard author different than that?
My opinion about the op-ed in the Washington Post was different. That was had a different quality of headline and article.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
All right. Is this witness subject to recall?
He is, Your Honor.
All right, sir, since you're subject to recall, the rule of witness does apply for you, so you cannot discuss your testimony and do not watch any of the case. Okay, sir? But you're free to go today, sir. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, watch your step there. All right, your next witness.
Plaintiff calls Douglas Banya, Your Honor.
Okay. Can you spell that last name for me?
B-A-N-I-A.
Thank you.
Your Honor, may I approach for just a moment?
Okay, sure. Mr. Nadelhoff.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to testify truthfully in this case for penalty of law?
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Mr. Banya. Will you please state your full name for the record?
Yes, Douglas Banya.
And Mr. Banya, what do you do for work?
I am an intellectual property damages and valuation expert.
Do you have any particular specialty in your line of work?
Yes, my specialty is using internet and social media analysis when I'm quantifying value, or I'm calculating damages, or if I'm analyzing the impact of social media or internet events.
Where do you work?
I work at Nevium, which is located in San Diego, California.
How long have you worked there?
10 years.
What's your position?
I'm a founding principal and an analyst.
I'd like to talk a little bit about your educational background for a moment. Where did you attend college?
I received my bachelor's degree in cinema from San Diego State University. I graduated in 1997.
And after you graduated in 1997, did you pursue another degree?
Yes, I went directly to San Diego State University. I got a master's degree in television, film, new media production.
Was there any particular reason you chose to go to San Diego State for that?
The new media production side of that program I really liked. I graduated from there in 2000, so this is even before YouTube was found. So the whole idea of putting film on the internet and kind of analyzing the internet and using analytic tools to see how things are doing on the internet is that's what attracted me, and that's what I learned there as well.
What did you do after you got your master's degree?
After the master's degree, I moved to Los Angeles, and I was an independent filmmaker for a while. Then I got introduced to intellectual property, and I started working for a small boutique IP firm back in San Diego.
What was the boutique firm you went to?
What was the name of the firm?
Yes.
The name of the firm was Consor.
And what did Consor do?
Consor values intellectual property for various business reasons. They do litigation support services as well.
And when you say intellectual property, what do you mean?
When I talk about intellectual property, I'm mostly talking about copyrights, patents, and trademarks. I might include related intangible assets such as domain names, websites, internet accounts. But IP for me is mostly brands, publicity rights, copyrights, trademarks.
What type of work did you do while you were at Consor?
I have various positions there, but I was a research analyst, as a financial analyst. I was a director of business development. My last position there was a principal.
And what kinds of things did you work on?
We worked on, valuation. Our clients, they needed a valuation of their IP portfolio for maybe tax or estate reasons. A lot of litigation support like I'm doing now. Somebody infringes on a trademark or publicity rights. That's actually the place I got my first expert witness job. I was a named expert on a right of publicity case representing the retired players of the NFL against the NFL. They're using their name and likeness without permission. So services such as that.
How long did you work at Consor?
I was at Consor for 10 years.
And after Consor, where did you work?
Then at Nevium, where I am now.
And did you found Nevium?
Yes.
What kind of work does Nevium do?
Nevium does several things, provides several services. So we value intellectual property for various reasons: tax, estate, M&A, business transactions. We not only provide the value of a business, but we can break that value. What percent of the value is this trademark portfolio or this patent portfolio? We do litigation support. So like I'm here, I testify in cases, maybe a false endorsement case. Somebody uses a celebrity's name and likeness without permission. Maybe there's a trademark infringement case. You used a brand without permission. A defamation case such as this. What's the impact of something that was posted online? So the third kind of bucket of services we offer is brand monetization strategies. So I think the best way to explain that is companies have business plans, they have marketing plans, they don't have IP plans. So we come in and work with customers, with our clients, understand their business and their marketing plans, and help them build an IP plan that fits in with those two so they can essentially make more money off their branded products and services. And I think what's important with all that is, what differentiates us with competitors is we use internet and website analytic tools and everything we do. Everything is online now, and understanding those tools when calculating value or calculating damages is important.
Do you have any professional certifications?
I am a certified licensing professional. That is a designation given by the Licensing Executive Society, LES. LES is a not-for-profit organization that supports professionals like me who deal with a lot of licensing. I'm a Google Analytics individual. I have a Google Analytics individual qualification. That is a test given by Google for those that understand and pass a test related to internet analytics.
Can you explain a little bit about what Google Analytics is?
Yeah, so Google Analytics is a web service provided by Google, and it's used by business owners and website owners to understand the traffic that comes to their websites. So essentially, once you sign up for your Google Analytics account, you're given a bit of code, and you embed that code into various your web pages. Then you can log in and you can see like who's coming to my website, what are they doing, and really it's essentially a tool for search engine optimization. You know, the goal of the web is to show up #1 in Google Organic. So then you'll tweak your website a bit. You'll look at your analytics, see if you're showing up on the first page of Google. If not, you can use those analytics to keep playing around and try to end up on the first page of Google.
Are you a member of any professional organizations?
I'm a member of the International Trademark Association. That is an organization. They're actually having their annual conference here in DC, so I'm popping back and forth to that. I'm on their right of publicity panel. I just gave a presentation on Monday. I'm a non-attorney member of the American Bar Association. I'm on their copyright and social media committee.
Your Honor, at this point, plaintiff would offer Mr. Banya as an expert in internet and social media analytics.
All right, any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, so moved. Thank you.
Mr. Banya, what were you asked to do in this case?
I was asked to analyze the impact of the allegations of domestic abuse made by Ms. Heard as it relates to her 2016 restraining order, and then asked to also analyze the republication of that alleged abuse in her 2018 Washington Post op-ed.
What work have you done in connection with forming your opinions relative to that?
So I identified the best tools to use in this case, which are Q-scores, Google Trends, and historic Google search results.
You used a few terms in there. I just want to break them down a little bit. What's a Q-score?
A Q-score is, there's a Q-score company that's been around for about 50 years, and what they do is they measure how well a brand or a celebrity or sports character is known and how much they're liked, and they also measure how much they're disliked.
Who else besides you uses Q-scores?
Q-scores are used by, any company that, organizations that license in a celebrity or a brand to endorse their product or service. The PGA Golf Tour is actually using Q-scores right now. They're using Q-scores in Google search results. They have a pool of $40 million that they're doling out to their players. So depending on their Google search results and their Q-scores and other metrics, I'm sure, they're using those to divide up that pool of money.
And I think you also mentioned Google Trends. What's that?
Yeah, Google Trends is another service offered by Google. As we know, everything starts with a Google search these days. There's 5 billion daily searches on Google. And Google Trends allows a user like me or you to go into Google Trends and analyze search traffic for various key terms, anything you really want. Maybe there's a new football player and you want to see how that football player is trending compared to the team over time, or maybe something related to Ukraine, or maybe a celebrity. So Google Trends just shows you what kind of search volume is happening during various points of time.
What are historical Google search results?
So historical Google search results are search using Google, there's actually an area where you can go back in time and see what was showing up in Google during that time. And it's really the best indication of what websites would have appeared back in time. Oftentimes, working with my monetization clients, we want to know, hey, how were you ranking years ago for your branded service or your branded company? It will go back in time and look, and then in litigation, we're always going back in time, so we want to figure out what was most likely happening, what websites were served back then. And when you know what websites were served back then, you typically know what people were reading and thinking about.
Why did you choose these particular tools for your analysis in this case?
Well, the Q scores, I really thought it was the best idea to understand Mr. Depp's Q scores right before 2016, before the abuse allegations, just to see where he was at. Then I wanted to see his Q scores right after the 2016 alleged abuse allegations. And then I wanted to see his Q scores after the 2018 Washington Post op-ed, just to see if there was any changes during that period of time.
And what about your decision to use Google Trends and historical Google search results?
Yeah, I felt that those two tools together were perfect, because what I wanted to do is understand, as I mentioned, everyone's going to Google to figure things out. What were people when people Googled Johnny Depp prior to these alleged abuse allegations? What websites were coming up and what was the public consuming about him? Then I wanted to know that after, and then after the op-ed. So I used Google Trends just to identify the dates in time, in which then I went into the historic Google search results. I searched for Mr. Depp, and then I changed those dates to go back in time, and then I analyzed the top 3 websites of each search.
Based on the analysis you did in this case, have you formed any opinions?
Yeah, my analysis shows that prior to 2016 and the allegations, the abuse allegations, Mr. Depp was not portrayed in a negative connotation. That's the first thing that I identified.
Did you form any other conclusions?
I realized that those websites that were coming up were mostly about his career, his characters, Johnny Depp as the individual, his interests. Then after the 2016 mark, the majority of those results turned into negative things about the abuse allegations. And then even more so after the op-ed, there seemed to be kind of a theme or a flavor of not only the abuse allegations, but his drinking and drug use. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Mr. Banya, have you prepared a demonstrative that depicts how you used Google Trends in this case?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, we'd like permission to approach. I have hard copies. Banya demonstrative A. And just for the record, we've marked these as plaintiffs 1236 for identification.
1236 for identification. Do you want to publish it to the jury?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And Mr. Banya, can you explain for the jury what is depicted in this demonstrative that you prepared?
Yes. So this is the Google Trends data. You're going to see that it runs from 2004 into 2020, and you're going to notice the different spikes. Those spikes represent when people were searching for Mr. Depp. You're going to also notice here I've got the red line just showing the date when Ms. Heard filed the restraining order. Can I write on this?
You can touch the screen, yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, so here I'm talking about, in this line here, is just the date and time in which Ms. Heard alleged the abuse and filed the restraining order. And then this line here is the December 18th, 2018 op-ed. And what I wanted to do is identify the peaks of interest in Mr. Depp. And you're going to notice here, I found 17 spikes of interest that I analyzed. And then the 51 key web pages we're going to get into later, I've analyzed the top 3 search results for each spike. And then here I analyzed the 7 spikes after the 2016 allegations of abuse, and then again after the December 18th, 2018 op-ed.
Once you determined these spikes, the periods of significant interest in searches for Johnny Depp on Google, what did you do with that information?
So, again, the purpose of using Google Trends was just to understand when there's the most interest in Johnny Depp, because for some reason something was going on in the news, in the media, people are turning to Google to search for Mr. Depp. So then I went to my web browser, and then I searched for Johnny Depp in Google. But before I did so, I have a separate web browser. I call it my Workbench browser. I don't log into anything. It's important to be logged out of Google because Google keeps a profile on you, and your search results could be biased based on that profile. Then also when you go into a web browser, you have to clear your cache, you have to clear your history, clear all your data, and make sure you can get the most unbiased search results as possible. So I went into Google, I typed in Johnny Depp, and then I searched and set the time periods for the various points here that you see labeled with letters.
Do you have a demonstrative that shows an example of one of those points that you examined?
Yes.
Okay. Tom, could we go to the second Banya demonstrative, please?
Yeah, so this is an example of, I believe it was spike or point O in the Google Trends. So what I did is I went into Google, I cleared everything as I told you, made sure I was logged out of Google. And here you're going to see I typed in Johnny Depp, I hit the search, and then what I did is went to this tool area, which pulls a drop-down area for the date. And I set the date to match the Google Trends spike of November of 2004. Then we had these top 3 websites that came up. I downloaded those websites and then I analyzed them.
So did you undertake this analysis for each of the 17 points on the prior slide that we looked at?
Yes, correct.
And what did you do once you had your web page results, such as on this demonstrative?
You mean when I reviewed each web page?
Yes.
Yeah, so what I was looking for is, were these web pages or articles, did they have anything to do with the alleged abuse? Did they have anything to do with his alcohol, drug use? Did they have anything to do with his work ethic? So I basically, tried to understand, the content and of each website or article.
Did you look at all of the results that turned up when you ran these historical searches?
I only reviewed the top 3.
Why did you choose the top 3?
So I reviewed the top 3 because research shows that about 50 to 75% of the people only click on the top 3. So I wanted to get the majority of the searches.
Tom, I think we can take that down for now. Thank you. What did you determine about the results that you found for the period prior to Ms. Heard's first allegations of abuse?
So I determined that, you know, Mr. Depp was not portrayed in any negative connotation. The web results were about his life and his career, his acting, his, you know, pictures of him, you know, relationships he was in, you know, just pretty normal stuff.
And what did you determine about the top results after Ms. Heard's initial allegations in 2016 and then the republication in the op-ed in 2018?
Objection, Your Honor.
Okay.
Mr. Banya, what did you find about the results of the top web pages that you determined after Ms. Heard's initial allegations and then again after the publication of the op-ed?
Yeah, so after the initial allegations in 2016, I found that the majority of them had to do with the alleged abuse. And then after I realized that the web pages that were dealing with the alleged abuse then started talking about his drinking and drinking and doing drugs. So it appeared to me that you know, they became negative after 2016, but then after 2018, they even included, you know, the alleged abuse, but also included the drinking and drug use.
Did you form any opinions about the results that didn't refer to the allegations of abuse?
That didn't. I formed an opinion that I'm not following your question. I'm sorry.
That's all right. We can move on. Did any of the results that you analyzed refer to Mr. Depp's work ethic?
No.
Did you form any overall opinions about the results in the web pages that you looked at following Ms. Heard's accusations of abuse?
Yes, as I stated, you know, prior to 2016, the web pages were just about his daily life and career. After the 2016 marker point, they tended to include, the majority of them included, you know, the allegations of abuse. And then after the 2018 op-ed, the ones that included the allegations of abuse were also talking about drinking and drug use.
What was your overall view of the connotation of those results then?
Yeah, so Mr. Depp was portrayed in a negative connotation after the 2016 allegations of abuse, and even more so after the 2018.
You mentioned you also looked at Q scores as part of your analysis. How are Q scores calculated?
Yeah, so Q scores, it's a survey of 1,800 people that happens twice a year. What they do is it's internet based, and they measure how well a celebrity or a brand is known, how much they're liked and how much they're disliked. Q scores, you know, include sports figures, celebrities, even cartoon characters, brands. So that's how the scoring system works.
Do you have a demonstrative that reflects the Q score analysis that you prepared?
Yes.
Okay. Tom, could we have demonstrative C, please? And Mr. Banya, what does this tell us about the Q score analysis that you completed?
Yeah, so what this is saying, again, you know, these spikes are the Google trends that you've already seen, but what I've overlaid are his Q scores shown in the red, green, and purple area. And as you recall, I wanted to find out his Q score prior to the allegations of abuse in 2016, where he had a positive Q score of 11 and a negative Q score, a positive Q score of 35 and a negative Q score of 11. And then I looked at the Q scores after, and then after the op-ed.
And what did you determine about those Q scores?
Yeah, so what you can see here, his positive Q score, which is represented in red, was a 35, and that was prior to the alleged abuse and the restraining order. And then after that, his Q score, positive Q score, dropped to a 31. And what that's saying is less people liked him after the date of the 2016 alleged abuse. And then his negative Q score went up from an 11 to a 16, which is telling you that more people disliked him during that time frame.
And what did you find about the final Q scores that you looked at for Mr. Depp?
Yeah, then you can see the Q score C that I have there in purple. His positive Q score went from a 31 to a 29. His negative Q score went from a 16 to a 15. So now his positive Q score dropped again from a 31 to a 29, meaning less people had a positive impression of Mr. Depp. And then his negative Q score did go from a 16 to a 15, so not as many people disliked Johnny during that time frame.
What are your overall opinions about the Q scores that you analyzed?
So my overall opinions are, as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to analyze the Q scores during this snapshot of time. I wanted to understand what they were before, during, and after the op-ed. And what this tells me is his positive Q score went from a 35 to a 29, and then his negative went from an 11 to a 15. So what the Q scores is telling me is the public perception of Mr. Depp has been damaged. They like him less and they dislike him more.
Based on all of the analyses that you completed in this case, what are your final opinions about Mr. Depp's reputation over this period of time?
Yeah, so my opinions are that, Mr. Depp was not portrayed in a negative connotation prior to the 2016 allegations of abuse. And then Mr. Depp's image, he was portrayed in a negative connotation after the 2016 allegations of abuse, and then more so after the 2018 Washington Post op-ed. And then the Q scores represent that, the public thinks he's damaged. They think less likely of him. His positive Q score has gone down, and they don't like him even more because his negative Q score went from the 11 to the 15.
I have no further questions of this witness, Your Honor.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and take our afternoon recess of 15 minutes. Do not discuss the case and do not do any outside research. Just stay right there for a second, sir. And sir, since you're in the middle of your testimony, do not discuss your case even with the attorneys at this point or your testimony. Okay, sir?
Okay.
All right. You can step down. We'll be back in about 15 minutes. Okay? All right. So let's come back then at 3:35. All right. Does it work? Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
please silence their phones, please. Silence their phones. Everyone go off. Please make sure they're silenced.
All right, we ready for the jury? Okay.
We have one exhibit to hand out.
Okay, one exhibit. Oh, good. That means you're only down one, right?
That's right.
Okay, perfect. This is 1639. All right, thank you. All right. Go ahead and get the jury. 1639. All right, please be seated. All right, cross-examination.
Good afternoon, Mr. Banya.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Banya, you understand that this case is about the op-ed in December of 2018, correct?
I understand this case to be about the allegations of domestic abuse, both as it relates to the 2016 and the republication of that, and the 2018 Washington Post op-ed.
You understand that Mr. Depp is only suing Amber about the op-ed from December 2018, correct?
My understanding is, I can base my understanding on my analysis, which includes the 2016 allegations of
That's your
abuse.
analysis, but do you understand what Mr. Depp is suing Amber for in this case?
Objection, Your Honor, to the extent it calls for a legal conclusion.
All right, I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
Did you read the complaint in this case?
Yes.
Did you understand that Mr. Depp was only suing for the op-ed, about the op-ed?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Depp was not suing Amber in this case from his complaint about the accusation she made in 2016, correct?
That is my understanding.
And you're not able to separate out how Mr. Depp's reputation was impacted from the op-ed in 2018 versus how it was impacted when Ms. Heard filed for divorce in 2016, correct?
That is not correct.
Okay. May I approach you?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Banya, you took a deposition in this case,
Yes, I did.
and I was asking you the questions in that case. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And you took that deposition on March 21st, 2022?
That is correct.
Okay. And you were under oath at the time, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And you were under oath to tell the truth, correct?
correct.
Can you turn to page 83 of your transcript, which is on the 21st page of the...
I'm here?
Okay, and you see line 9?
Yes.
And I ask you, are you able to separate out how Mr. Depp's reputation was impacted from the op-ed versus how it was impacted by when Ms. Heard filed for divorce? And your answer was no, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you're not able to separate out how Mr. Depp's reputation was impacted from the op-ed in 2018 versus the publicity surrounding when Mr. Depp sued the Sun newspaper in the United Kingdom when a Sun writer called Mr. Depp a wife beater, correct?
Are you still reading from my deposition?
No, I'm asking you a question now.
Please repeat that.
You're not able to separate out how Mr. Depp's reputation was impacted from the op-ed in 2018 versus the publicity surrounding when Mr. Depp sued the Sun newspaper in the United Kingdom when a Sun writer called Mr. Depp a wife beater.
Objection, compound, Your Honor.
Sustained.
You're not able to separate out how Mr. Depp's reputation was impacted from the op-ed in 2018 versus the publicity surrounding when Mr. Depp sued the Sun newspaper in the United Kingdom, correct?
My analysis shows that the web documents that I reviewed after the 2018 allegations.
Respectfully, this is a yes or no.
got worse.
This is a yes or no question.
Please repeat the question.
You're not able to separate out how Mr. Depp's reputation was impacted from the op-ed in 2018 versus the publicity surrounding when Mr. Depp sued the Sun newspaper in the United Kingdom.
That was not part of my analysis to carve that out.
And you didn't. You wouldn't. You were not able to separate it, correct?
I didn't try to.
Okay, and so you couldn't.
I didn't try it.
Okay. And you understand that the article Mr. Depp sued the Sun over had the headline that said, "How can J.K. Rowling be genuinely happy casting wife-beater Johnny Depp in the new Fantastic Beasts film," correct?
I don't recall if that's one of the articles I reviewed.
Do you know if that article came out before Ms. Heard's op-ed?
I don't know.
Now, you're not offering an opinion as to how the op-ed for Ms. Heard in December 2018 impacted Mr. Depp's career, correct?
Repeat that, please.
You're not offering an opinion as to how the op-ed from Ms. Heard in December 2018 impacted Mr. Depp's career.
Correct.
Okay. And you're not offering an opinion as to how the op-ed from Ms. Heard in December 2018 impacted Mr. Depp's reputation.
What I'm doing is
It's a yes or no. Are you offering an opinion to that or not?
My opinion is related to his public image.
You're not offering an opinion as to how the op-ed from Ms. Heard in December 2018 impacted Mr. Depp's reputation, correct?
I'm not talking exactly about his reputation, correct?
And you're not offering an opinion as to how the op-ed from Ms. Heard in December 2018 impacted Mr. Depp's public image, correct?
I'm offering an opinion that after the 2018
It's a yes or
his
no,
public
sir.
image.
It's a yes or no. You're not offering an opinion as to how the op-ed from Ms. Heard in December 2018 impacted Mr. Depp's public image.
I am.
Turn to your deposition transcript, please. And if you go to page 74, which is on page 19. And you see line, are you there?
Yes.
You see line 1, starting on line 1. I asked you, and you're not going to testify how the December 2018 op-ed impacted Mr. Depp's public image. Answer, that's correct. That was your testimony at the time,
Okay.
correct?
Well,
That was
Johnny
your answer
Depp's
at the time,
perception is
Sir,
a
that
negative
was your answer at the
perception.
time, correct?
Okay. Yes.
And that was your answer on March 21st, 2022, correct?
Yes, the date of the deposition.
So that was a month and a half ago,
Right.
correct? Okay. And you're not offering an opinion as to whether the op-ed from Ms. Heard made Mr. Depp more hireable or less hireable, correct?
Correct.
Okay. As to the articles that came up in the Google searches that you spoke about, it was you made the determination whether the articles had a, quote, negative connotation or not, right?
Correct.
Okay. And so that's just your view if an article had a negative connotation about Mr. Depp, right?
Yes, that's my opinion that they had a negative connotation.
Right. So if an article criticizes Mr. Depp's acting, for example, you're not considering that article as having a negative connotation about Mr. Depp, correct?
Repeat that, please.
So if an article criticizes Mr. Depp's acting, you're not considering that article as having a negative connotation about Mr. Depp, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, in your analysis of Google spikes, the highest spike in searches for Mr. Depp was in January 2004, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and I guess you guys have it. Can you put up the demonstrative 1236? It's published. And can you see that, Mr.
Yes.
Can we make it just a little bit bigger? Okay. So if I'm understanding you correctly, A is where the most searches were conducted for Johnny Depp, correct?
Correct.
And that's from January 2004, correct?
Correct.
So that was 18 years ago?
Correct.
Okay. And that was when Ms. Heard was 18 years old?
I don't know.
Okay. The top spike you mark as 100, correct?
I did not mark that, but Google Trends identified that spike as 100.
And where it says 100, you don't know how many people actually searched for Johnny Depp at that point, correct?
Well, the Google Trends algorithm marks the highest point of search as 100, and then everything is compared to that as a ratio or a percent. So if you notice that A is 100, everything else is lower than that because everything is being compared to that highest point.
Right, so you don't know how many people actually did the search for Johnny Depp in January 2004, correct?
Correct.
It could be 100 or it could be 1 million, right?
I don't know.
And you don't know if it's actually human beings doing these searches, correct?
As opposed to
bots or something like that.
I did not do an analysis to determine if there's a bot or a human being, but Google Trends is a tool that's going to show you during a time frame the highest point of search interest as 100.
Okay. But you don't know if it's humans, bots, my cat doing the searches, correct?
Objection asked and answered, Your Honor.
Sustained. Next question.
Now, in all of these Google spikes, Ms. Heard's op-ed never came up as one of the top 3 searches in any of the Google spikes, correct?
Well, that is correct because Google Trends is based on a search of a word or a name. And because Mr. Depp's name was not mentioned in that op-ed, Google Trends did not pick that up.
So a person does a search for Johnny Depp and the op-ed doesn't come up, correct?
In my analysis, the op-ed did not come up.
Okay. And in fact, the red dotted line all the way to the right, that shows when the op-ed was published on December 18th, 2018, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the searches are actually going down right after the red line, correct?
As opposed to the searches in 2004?
No. Look at the red line, look at the red dotted line, and you have two points here, right there. Those go down from the time of the op-ed, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And isn't it true that the next, I guess, spike happens in March of 2019, correct? Right there.
Yes.
And do you know that it was March of 2019 when Mr. Depp sued Amber Heard in this case?
No, I didn't look at that date.
Right. You didn't look at any articles for this bullet, correct?
That's correct.
And since Ms. Heard's op-ed came out on December 18th, 2018, you would agree with me that by definition, all the spikes you analyzed before December 2018, could not have been caused by the op-ed, right?
Correct.
So articles about Mr. Depp's drug use before December 2018 could not have been caused by the op-ed, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you, in this chart, analyze only 2 spikes after the op-ed, isn't that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And the first spike you analyzed after December 2018 is V, correct?
Yes.
And is that January 2020?
Roughly, yes.
Okay. So that's January 2020 is over a year after the op-ed by Ms. Heard, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then the next spike you analyzed was T, correct?
Yes.
And that was in approximately July 2020?
Correct.
Okay, so that was a year and a half after Ms. Heard's op-ed, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And again, none of the articles, and then for V and T, if I understand it, you then analyze the top 3 searches that came up, or the top 3 websites that came up after a search?
Correct.
Okay. And none of the articles you analyzed in those Google spikes after the op-ed were the op-ed, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And isn't it true that the headlines of the articles over a year after the op-ed that you analyzed were about Mr. Depp suing the Sun in the UK for a Sun writer calling Mr. Depp a wife beater?
You would have to pull those articles back up. I don't have those in front of me.
Isn't it true that the article, and just so I understand it, V and T, that would mean there were 6 articles, correct, that you analyzed?
Yes.
Okay. And isn't it true that the article on February 26, 2020, the headline was, quote, Johnny Depp's disturbing alleged text messages read aloud in court as libel lawsuit begins?
Again, I don't have that article in front of me. I did produce those as part of my analysis. I don't have that in front of me, if you'd like to show it to me.
And you understand that that was about the lawsuit against the Sun in the UK, not about the op-ed, correct?
Again, I did not have that in front of me.
And another article that came up on February 27th, 2020 is one of the top 3 hits when you search for Johnny Depp. What the headline was, quote, let's burn Amber, text allegedly sent by Johnny Depp about X read in court.
I mean, if you want to talk about these articles, we need to bring them up.
This is your opinion. You don't recall what articles you analyzed?
I mean, there's a lot of articles here. I didn't memorize each title.
There were 6 articles that you analyzed in the almost 2 years after the op-ed.
All right, but can you bring those up and we can talk about them?
And on July 19th, 2020, the headline was, quote, Hollywood nervously awaits fallout from explosive Johnny Depp trial. You don't recall one way or the other whether that was one of the articles in either V or T?
Again, I know if you want to bring up my documents, I know document 9J, 9O, 9K, and 9M are mentioning the op-ed. Again, I don't have those in front of me.
And when you say mentioning the op-ed, does that mean that it just references that Mr. Depp sued Amber Heard in Fairfax?
No, it talks about how he's alleged to have abused her as it relates to the op-ed.
Doesn't it say, I mean, another headline from July 19th, 2020, the headline was, quote, Hollywood nervously awaits fallout from explosive Johnny Depp trial?
Objection asked and answered.
Sustain the objection. Next question.
You understood that was about the lawsuit against the Sun in the UK, correct?
Objection asked and
I
answered.
didn't ask about that.
Overruled.
Again, I would like to talk about these articles, but I need to see them.
And on July 19th, 2020, the headline was, quote, Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard, all the nasty bits of the UK trial, and it's all nasty. That was in point T, correct?
Again, I do not have that list in front of me. If you'd like to bring that up, we could talk about it.
And you understood that was about the lawsuit against the Sun in the UK, correct?
I do not.
And on July 19th, 2020, the headline was, quote, Johnny Depp claims in the Sun he beat ex-wife, complete lies, court told. That was the quote, correct?
I don't see that here.
That was in your report, correct?
I would have to look at the documents again. I would be happy to discuss them if you would bring those up.
And then you previously had a chart that had articles from November 2020, correct?
I'm sorry, say that?
You previously had a chart that included articles from November 2020, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. May we approach?
Okay, sure.
You understood it was Mr. Depp's decision to sue the Sun, correct?
I don't know. It's not part of my analysis.
Now, you talked about Q scores in your direct testimony, correct?
Correct.
And you testified about 3 particular Q scores for Mr. Depp, right?
3 periods of time are the Q scores that I analyzed.
And you're not offering an opinion as to why Mr. Depp's Q scores changed, correct?
That's correct.
And Q scores can go up and down for actors for any sort of reason, correct?
That's possible.
You recall testifying that they could go up and down for any sort of reason in your deposition.
Yeah, they can go up and down for many different reasons.
So you're not offering an opinion that Mr. Depp's Q scores were damaged because of Ms. Heard's op-ed, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And in comparing the Q scores from before the op-ed to the Q scores after the op-ed, Mr. Depp's Q scores dropped by 2 points, correct?
I don't have those Q scores in front of me, but if you're looking at them, I believe
We can show the 3rd page of this demonstrative.
What was your question, please?
Mr. Depp's positive Q scores from B to C dropped by 2 points, correct?
Yes.
You're not an expert on statistics, correct?
Correct.
And even though you're not an expert, you have an idea about what the term statistically significant means, correct?
Yes.
And statistical significance is a measure of whether your findings are meaningful, right?
Yes, I don't think you need statistics to understand Q scores.
And you don't know if there's any significance to a drop in 2 points in positive Q score, correct?
Well, there absolutely is. When you're ordering Q scores on points at a time.
Mr. Banyan, go to your deposition, page 113, which is on 29.
Okay.
At 10, page 113, line 10, it says, so you're not offering an opinion as to the significance of a change in Q score, correct? Answer, correct.
Well, you're talking about statistically a difference. What I'm talking about is how we use Q scores in the industry. When you see a Q score from dropping from a 31 to a 29, there's an issue. Is this somebody you really want to hire to endorse your products or your service? No, you probably not. You want to look into why, what is going on in the public to make these Q scores drop like that.
And you don't know exactly the significance between 5 or 6 points of drop in Q score, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, and it shows here that Mr. Depp's negative Q score actually got better from point B to point C, correct?
Correct.
So that's actually better for Mr. Depp, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you understand that Dr. Alan Jacobs reviewed your opinions in this case?
Yes.
And you understand that Dr. Jacobs reviewed additional Q score data, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Can we please put up Plaintiff's Exhibit 889 at 117? Mr. Banya, do you understand this as a chart of Mr. Depp's Q scores from winter 2012 through summer of 2021?
Yes.
Do you have any reason to question the Q scores that are shown in this chart?
Like I said in my deposition, I've not received the actual data to build this chart, but I don't have any reason to not believe that this is accurate.
As I understand it, Q scores are performed on a celebrity like Mr. Depp twice a year, correct?
Yes.
So there's winter of a particular year, and then there's summer of a particular year?
Yes.
And the winter scores come out around February, is that right?
I don't have that information in front of me, but it sounds right.
And so would you know when the summer scores come out?
I don't.
Okay. And this chart shows, well, permission to publish this chart as a demonstrative, Your Honor.
Any objection?
I don't think this witness has laid an appropriate foundation for it, Your Honor.
He said he has no reason to question the Q scores.
I'll allow it as a demonstrative. That's fine.
And so this chart shows Mr. Depp's positive and negative Q scores, correct?
Correct.
And the positive Q scores are in blue.
That's correct.
Can you blow it up a little bit, Michelle? And the negative Q scores are in red?
Yes.
Okay.
Objection, Your Honor, may we approach for a
Yes.
moment?
Mr. Banya, the positive Q score for Mr. Depp in the winter of 2012 is 42, correct?
It's in between. Yeah, it's in between 40 and 45.
Okay. And did you check the actual Q scores that Mr. Jacobs demonstrated in his report?
No, my analysis was a snapshot of time. I wanted to know Johnny Depp's Q scores directly before the 2012 allegations, the 2016 allegations of abuse, and after.
Okay. And you see here that the positive Q scores for Mr. Depp dropped from 42 in the winter of 2012 to 35 in the summer of 2016, correct?
Yes.
That's a 7-point drop, correct?
Yes.
And that's before Ms. Heard had her divorce filing, correct?
That's correct.
And that drop in Mr. Depp's positive Q scores could have nothing to do with Ms. Heard's op-ed, correct?
Correct.
And that drop could have nothing to do with the allegations Ms. Heard made after the divorce filing, correct?
Correct.
And would you agree that the positive Q scores actually start to show an increase for Mr. Depp after the op-ed? There's a decrease and then there's an increase?
Yeah.
And the same for the negative Depp Q scores. There's a bit of a positive and then it goes down, correct?
Yes.
So really the op-ed had no effect on Mr. Depp's Q scores, correct?
As I mentioned, my analysis looked at the snapshot of time, and it shows that he was harmed, from before the allegations of abuse in 16 to after the op-ed in 2018.
You looked at 3 Q scores And you could have looked at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I won't even count the 2021 scores. 18 Q scores, correct?
Yep,
Okay. And you looked at 3, right?
that's correct.
And that's what you're basing your opinion on, that the op-ed damaged Mr. Depp's Q scores?
Yeah, so what we need to
That's my
understand is
que-
Q scores.
my question is a
do
yes or
go
no.
up
Your
and
counsel
down.
can come back and ask
what
you whatever
I
you
wanted
want.
to do
Your
is
Honor.
I wanted to
Sir,
analyze.
sir, if you can just answer his yes or no
Oh,
question,
sorry.
that's fine.
I didn't hear your question.
You looked at 3 Q scores instead of 18 Q scores, correct?
That's correct.
And did you look at the Q scores at all after the Dan Wooten article that came out in April of 2018?
Objection, asked and answered, Your Honor.
I don't think I asked that.
Overruled, I'll allow it.
No.
Okay. Thank you. I have nothing further.
All right, redirect.
Mr. Banya, on cross-examination, you were asked some questions about the fact that you made a determination about which of these articles had a negative connotation. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Is that something that you do in situations other than in your analysis in this case?
Yeah. So in non-litigation, when we're building brand monetization strategies, and especially if you're going to work with a celebrity or an athlete, you want to look at what's going on out there, about that personality. Because celebrities and athletes, Q scores can go up and down. You want to analyze the time and see what's going on out in the media. Do I really want my client to license in a celebrity that there's problems out there, or an athlete? So yes, it's important to look at this.
And I believe you were asked whether you're offering an opinion in this case about the impact of the op-ed on Mr. Depp's public image. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And I believe you testified that you are offering an opinion on that. Is that right?
Yes.
What's that opinion?
Well, the opinion is that he's portrayed in a negative connotation after that date.
And with respect to the Q scores that you analyzed, Mr. Nadelhoff was asking you about the 3 points in time that you looked at. Why, in your opinion, was it appropriate to look at just those 3 Q scores?
Yeah, as I was trying to explain, Q scores do go up and down. We're analyzing a period of time. We want to see what's happening right before an event, during that event, and if there's another event after that event. And that is our area of analysis. So that's why just these 3 sets of Q scores are the appropriate way to analyze this.
Thank you. I have nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, is this witness subject to recall?
He is, Your Honor.
All right. Sir, do not discuss your testimony with anybody since you are subject to recall, but since you are an expert, you are allowed to stay in the courtroom if you wish, okay?
Okay,
All right, thank you,
Your
sir.
Honor.
All right, you can step down. Thank you. All right, your next witness.
Your Honor, I believe we're calling Aaron Filati by deposition.
Oh, okay.
And, Your Honor, there are a few exhibits. There are at least 2 exhibits. I think we have some of those.
Okay, could you put your microphone on?
We approach, there's 2 exhibits that we have
Okay.
to speak
All right, well, we're All right. Your next witness then?
Thank you, Your Honor. Plaintiff calls Aaron Filati, also known as Aaron Borem Filati, and Ms. Hurd's counsel begins the questioning.
Okay, thank you.
Provide your full name.
Aaron Filati.
And is Borum your maiden name?
Correct.
Okay. So Borum was your last name in the 2014 to 2016 timeframe, correct?
That's correct.
Have you communicated with anybody else from Mr. Depp's counsel other than Ms. Vasquez?
Not that I recall. Oh, excuse me, I do. I don't remember his name. I'm so sorry. I feel like I spoke with Adam. I don't know his last name.
Did you speak to or communicate with Adam Waldman?
Perhaps. I don't recall his last name.
And do you recall when that occurred?
That would have been 2019 because I had a newborn at that time. So maybe May, June, July, something like that, 2019.
So this is a text exchange between you and Mr. Waldman?
It appears so.
Okay. And do you recall speaking to Mr. Waldman at all?
Yes.
And do you recall that when you were communicating with Mr. Waldman was Mr. Depp's attorney?
Yes.
Ms. Filati, you're a trained nurse, is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you have any specialties?
Well, I haven't been working, like I used to, but previously I was trained in addictions and mental health.
And when you say addictions, are there specific type of addictions you were trained in?
All that I primarily worked with chemical dependency.
And where did you receive training for addiction and mental health?
Different employment places, and then I became a certified registered addictions nurse.
You know who Dr. David Kipper is, correct?
Correct.
Did you work for Dr. Kipper?
Not directly, but he would hire the agency I provided nursing services for, which was Turning Point, I believe. So I worked under his guidance, but not specifically for him. Most of the time. There have been times where I've worked specifically for him.
Okay. When did you start working for Turning Point Nursing Services, or whatever the name of that company was?
I don't recall. My best guess would be somewhere between 2007 or 8.
And when did you start to begin to do any work for Dr. Kipper?
I believe 2014.
What were the circumstances that started you working for Dr. Kipper in 2014?
If I recall correctly, it would be for services for Ms. Hurd.
Were you ever responsible for Mr. Depp's nursing care while he was under the treatment of Dr. Kipper?
I provided him with nursing care. It's true.
So Ms. Filati, I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 2 to your deposition. And these are AHTPD 16929 through 16959. And is that the paper documents you have, a set of the paper documents you have in front of you?
Part of the first page.
And the first page might have said at the bottom also K182.
Yes, I have that.
Okay. Do you recognize these as your, what are these?
These are my nursing notes kept for Ms. Hurd. Yes.
And these are notes you created?
Yes.
Did you create these notes in the ordinary course of business?
Yes.
Okay. Were you trained in how to prepare these notes?
Yes.
Would you write these when? How long after the visit would you write up these notes?
Would depend. Sometimes I would keep notes on my phone that I would transfer to the Word document when I was in front of my laptop. And if not possible, I would do it as soon as feasible.
And how often would you show these notes to Dr. Kipper?
I don't recall. At intervals, but I don't recall.
So if you look at the first page of the notes, the first entry is August 27th, 2014, correct?
Yes.
And you wrote RN has been hired to provide private nursing care for client Amber Heard, right?
Correct.
Right. And RN refers to you, correct? And an RN means registered nurse, correct?
Correct.
And throughout the notes, and you say this here, Amber Heard would be referred to as client or AH, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And Johnny Depp would be referred to as JD?
That's correct.
Would you agree that Mr. Depp and Amber would get into verbal arguments?
You recall a general sense of discord in the relationship.
And what do you mean by general sense of discord?
I just recall there being disagreements, reconciliation, and kind of that repeating pattern.
And would you be at times taking care of Amber because of the disagreements between Mr. Depp and Amber?
I provided emotional support. I was not present with her often, but was available over the phone, via text, and sometimes in person.
Do you recall that in March 2015, Amber went to Australia to be with Mr. Depp?
Yes, I remember she went to Australia. As to the dates, I would have to look through documentation to ascertain the exact dates.
Okay. And on Exhibit 2, this is your note of March 7th, 2015?
That's correct.
And you wrote, client notifies RN via text of increasing anxiety?
Yes, I wrote that.
And then on 3/8/15, you wrote, RN received report from Debbie RN. Debbie being Debbie Lloyd, correct?
That's correct.
Do you recall what the report you received was on March 8th, 2015 from Debbie?
I mean, I'm just reading my notes.
Sure.
So to answer your question, no, I don't recall specifics of what the report would have been. I assume, based on this note, that would have been a phone call.
Okay. And it says, client will be returning to Los Angeles on March 9th, 2015, accompanied by House Manager Ben. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Did you have an understanding as to why Amber was leaving Australia in March of 2015?
Yes. I don't know if this is the exact timing, but you know better than I, there was an incident in Australia and they had to be, Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp had to be separated. So Ms. Heard returned to Los Angeles per my nursing notes, and I believe Mr. Depp must have stayed in Australia.
What was your understanding as to why Mr. Depp and Amber had to be separated?
It's hard to recall specifics because I wasn't there or involved at the time, but became involved again. I remember hearing from other people that there was quite an argument between the two in Australia.
Do you have any understanding if anyone was injured during the argument between Amber and Mr. Depp?
Physically injured?
Physically, yeah.
Again, I wasn't present, so I'm only speaking as to what I recall during that time period and what I sort of remember hearing from others. And also, I just remember Mr. Depp's finger was injured. I can't tell you specifically which one, but I remember there was an injury to his finger.
Do you have any understanding as to how his finger was injured?
No.
And then, Aaron, you wrote the next note on March 9th, 2015 that says RN and CT in touch via text and phone calls after client arrived at 1500?
Yes, I wrote that.
Okay. And 1500, you're using military time, correct?
That's correct.
So that would be 3 p.m.?
Correct.
Okay. And you wrote client expressed feeling, quote, sad, right?
Yes, I wrote that.
So do you recall what Amber was sad about at approximately March 9th, 2015?
I can't speak to the, I don't remember specifically, but I would assume based on my March 8th note, I would make the assumption that those feelings were in relation to the relationship issues.
You wrote, client states she would like to discuss recent events between her and husband with RN in private tomorrow. Plans are made for RN to visit client at her home tomorrow.
Yes, I wrote that.
Do you recall the conversation you had with Amber regarding the events between her and Mr. Depp at around this March 9th, 2015 timeframe?
No, I don't recall specifics.
Do you recall anything in general?
I really don't. I'm sorry.
Did Amber express any fear of Mr. Depp at this time?
Don't recall. I don't see that in this note, so I can't speak to that.
And then the note for March 10th, 2015, you see that note?
I do.
We can take this down. we put up attachment 25, please.
Stand by. And Exhibit 4.
Ms. Velati, I'm showing you a text chain between you and Whitney Hurd on March 23rd, 2015. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And on March 23rd, 2015, you texted to Whitney Hurd, Debbie just told me what's going on and to check with you, is Amber awake or fall asleep? You see that?
Do.
And then Ms. Hurd wrote she finally fell asleep. You see that?
Yes.
Okay. Then you wrote, thank goodness, she must be exhausted.
I'm sorry, just to confirm, this is from Whitney Hurd, not Amber Hurd, correct?
As I understand it, it says Whit Hurd. Is that your understanding?
I assume. Thank you.
And then do you recall ever communicating with Whitney Hurd via text or chat?
That sounds familiar.
Okay. And you wrote, thank goodness, she must be exhausted. You want me to come to the loft, or is she safe and sound asleep? You see that?
I do see that.
Okay. And then Whitney wrote, safe? Question mark? No, she's not. Kept saying she wants to kill herself. You see that?
See that?
Were you ever concerned about Ms. Hurd's safety as it relates to Mr. Depp?
So if she made comments to me that she was not safe, I would be concerned about her to ensure that she was safe. Yes.
Do you recall Ms. Hurd making comments to you about her safety?
I remember a general sense when they, meaning Ms. Hurd and Mr. Depp, would have arguments. She would often have her friends around her for support, but from a general, physical sense, she was always in a safe place.
And you mean in a general physical sense, she was always in a safe place? What do you mean by that?
Meaning she was always, not always, I should say, often home, often surrounded with friends. She had friends that lived right down the hallway from her, so she was always supported.
Was Mr. Depp friends with Marilyn Manson?
Yes, I believe.
Ms. Velati, I'm showing you what's marked as Exhibit 7, and these are texts that Mr. Depp produced between you and him. And I'm focusing on this text message of October 31st, 2015. You see that? Well, so this text message between you and Whitney is on March 23rd, 2015. You see that?
I do.
Okay. And if we go back to Exhibit 2, and I'll go back. Oops. There's no entry for March 23rd, 2015. Yeah. You see that? Not everything you did for Ms. Hurd as a nurse is reflected in these notes, correct? And the next notes we have are November 25th, 2015. Do you know why there's a long period where there's no notes?
Yes. Perhaps I can shed some light for you and everyone on the relationship. When I was first hired to care for Ms. Hurd, I worked full-time. I was assigned 24/7 basically. And after a period of time, I became more part-time and on call. And I was working with different clients at the time. So I would, I would not be working regularly, but would also be available if an issue arose or a medication change needed or things like that. So I would assume that would account for this gap.
Why did you move from full-time to part-time?
I don't know the exact answer, but I assume that's not my decision to make. That's usually the client and or treating physician.
Okay, so that's the first page of Exhibit 2.
Yes, thank you. So if you can you go down to, it's about the third paragraph, a little bit, yes. Per report from JD, which refers to Mr. Depp, Debbie, RN, and Dr. Kipper, client AH, which is Ms. Heard, has reportedly been experiencing increased anxiety and agitation recently and has had several outbursts of anger and rage. From what I remember, when I was involved in the case, it was to help assist Ms. Heard with some emotional issues, anxiety issues, in attempts to assist, in layman's term, kind of calming things down a bit.
Do you recall any examples that you knew of anger and rage showed by Amber?
I do recall seeing her very angry. I have to refer to my notes. It was in London, so that would have been 2014. And I believe it was in reference to a violating incident where her phone had been hacked and she was quite upset. I saw her angry at that time, and other times I don't recall.
Were you in London with Amber at the time?
Yes.
And how was Amber showing her anger?
I recall loud, kind of elevated voice, yelling, crying, quite upset.
Do you recall receiving a call from Amber around December 16th, 2015 regarding this argument between Mr. Depp and Amber?
I don't recall a specific phone call.
Would you doubt that a phone call occurred if you wrote it down in your notes?
If I wrote it, I don't doubt that it occurred. I just don't have memory of it.
And now you see the note on December 17th, 2015?
Yes.
And you wrote RN in contact with client to notify her that she'd be able to deliver medications to her home. RN waited at the door for several minutes after knocking. Client greeted RN at the door looking disheveled. Hair appeared unbrushed. Client appeared weepy and sad. Posture is slouched. Client told RN about argument with husband. RN offered emotional support but reminded client that RN could not stay as was on duty with another client and was only visiting in order to deliver medication. Per client, she had not had contact with husband since altercation. Client had visible bright red blood appearing at center of lower lip. When RN made client aware that she was actively bleeding on her lip, client stated it was from injury sustained in the, and then it's blank, you see that? And then we can keep going down in the argument between her and her husband, and that it continues to bleed actively. You wrote that?
Yes.
And then you also wrote clients also states that her head is bruised and that she lost clumps of hair in altercation. You wrote that?
I assume so. It's in my notes.
Okay. And then you wrote, RN briefly looked at client's scalp but was unable to visualize the hematomas client had described. You wrote that?
Yes, I would agree.
And then you wrote RN encourage client to be seen by physician Dr. Kipper or go to emergency urgent care for thorough assessment. You see that?
I do.
And then you wrote client states she will contact Dr. Kipper tomorrow. Client is supported by friends Rocky and IO who will be staying in client's home with her. You wrote that?
I agree, yes.
Okay. And then on December 18th, 2015, you wrote client states she went to Dr. Kipper's office and was assessed by NP Monroe T as Dr. Kipper was out of the office. You wrote that?
Yes,
And NP stands for nurse practitioner.
that's correct.
And you understand Monroe T stood for Monroe Tinker.
Yes,
You recall if Mr. Depp ever forgot to take any of his medication?
at a specific time or ever?
In any time where you were working with him?
I would say vaguely, yes.
Ms. Bellotti, I'm showing this been marked as Exhibit 11 to your deposition, which is Bellotti 96 through 106. You see that?
Yes,
You recall receiving this text message, right?
a vague memory of this.
Do you recall if you spoke to Amber after you received this text message? Or at any time after you received this text message around May 21st, May 22nd, 2016?
Are you saying a phone call or just?
Phone call.
I don't really recall.
It could have happened, you just don't recall one way or the other?
I would agree with that.
And you received this picture from Amber?
That's correct.
What is this picture of?
I was just asking if you could scroll down. Well, could you rewind it just a little?
Ms. Heard.
And does the picture show redness under Miss Heard's eyes?
You can answer as a lay person if she has such an opinion. If you have an opinion one way or the other, you can let them know.
I'm not an expert, so I mean, there's color on her face in different areas. I don't know what's what.
And you received this first picture of Amber at 12:36 a.m., correct?
That's the timestamp there.
And you received another picture at 12:36 a.m.?
It appears so.
And who do you see in that picture?
Also misheard.
And you received a third picture of Amber at 12:36 a.m.?
Yes, it appears so.
And is that third picture of Amber?
Yes, that's misheard.
And you received the fourth picture of Amber at 12:36 a.m.?
Then yes.
And this fourth, I think just so it's clear, the fourth picture is of Amber, correct?
That's correct.
And you received that at 12:36 a.m.?
Yes, that's the timestamp.
And these are pictures of Amber's face, correct?
Yes, that's a picture of her face and neck.
Do you recall do you recall receiving those pictures?
Like I said, I have a vague memory of this, but I don't specifically remember receiving it.
Okay. Do you know if you reported these pictures or what Ms. Heard reported to you to Dr. Kipper?
I would assume that if any information was presented to me, I would have contacted Dr. Kipper.
And do you know how you would have contacted Dr. Kipper?
No, I depending on the date, time, I would sometimes call, email, text.
Do you recall if you wrote nurse notes for this incident?
I don't recall.
You want us to look at Exhibit 2?
It's the nursing notes?
Yeah. Why don't we do that? So there's notes for May 11th, 2016. You see that?
Yeah.
And then the next notes for May 26th, 2016.
Yes.
Okay. Do you know why you didn't include notes for May 21st, 2016?
I don't know.
And on May 26th, you wrote, client texted RN requesting Ambien as she states she's suffering from insomnia due to stress and anxiety. Client reports, quote, having the hardest week of my life, end quote. You wrote that?
Yes.
And you wrote, client states she cannot deal with the negative media publicity she has received surrounding the divorce she requested from her husband, JD. Dr. Kipper notified Ambien 10 milligrams, QHS PRN 14 ordered. Per Dr. Kipper, client is encouraged to make appointment with Dr. Kipper in office to be assessed. Client did not respond. You wrote that?
Yes.
Ms. Vladi, I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 12 to your deposition, which is Vladi 114 through 119. You can take a look through them. It appears to be notes of when you were Mr. Depp's nurse, as opposed to Ms. Heard. But feel free to take a look.
That's correct. I think these are my nursing notes in relation to Mr. Depp.
So client now is Mr. Depp, correct?
That's correct, because these nursing notes are in reference to Mr. Depp. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And in the nursing note for April 23rd, 2015, you wrote that Dr. Kipper will introduce Rosalind Phillip to Debbie RN and clients Amber H. and Johnny Depp. Debbie RN will assist in coordinating session appointments between clients and Ms. Phillips. Do you know if Mr. Depp and Amber ever saw Rosalind Phillip?
I don't know.
And at Pilates 117, it shows notes for June 7th, 2016, correct?
That is correct.
You wrote, the following medications were approved per Dr. Kipper to be given to the client, and then there's a list of medications. You wrote these notes, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And did you understand that Mr. Depp was taking those medications as of June 7th, 2016?
For this nursing note, it appears that he was taking these medications listed.
And then there's a nursing note for June 26, 2016. You see that?
Yes.
And it says, you wrote, client is going through divorce with wife Amber H. and is dealing with the loss of his mother, passed away 1 month ago. Client was provided with the divorce request from wife AH 3 days after mother passed away. Do you see that?
Yes.
And you wrote that?
Yes.
So was it your understanding that Amber asked for a divorce?
This note says that Mr. Depp was provided with divorce request from Ms. Heard, so it appears she was the one requesting a divorce.
Right, and you wrote next, client states he was not aware AH wanted divorce and expresses confusion regarding AH's desire to terminate marriage. You wrote that?
Yes.
Is that what Mr. Depp told you?
I would assume if I wrote it in my notes.
Then you wrote, client's divorce has been highly publicized and wife AH has been accused him of several character damaging allegations, including domestic violence. You wrote that, correct?
Correct.
Was this on did you write this based on information Mr. Depp provided you?
I don't know. I would assume that I've had discussions with him regarding this, considering that this is a nursing note for Mr. Depp.
Did Mr. Depp tell you his character had been damaged as of June 2016?
I don't recall. I have to go by what my note says here. So it alludes to that's something that he had discussed.
And you see where he wrote, client states he felt helpless previously but is now angry at AH and wants to clear his name. Mr. Depp told you that?
Again, I don't recall for sure, but I would go back to my nursing notes because those were written more at the time. So I would assume that he and I discussed that.
Okay, farther down, you wrote, RN assisted client in processing feelings and encouraged client to continue utilizing individual therapy as he responded well to RN's use of therapeutic communication. You see that?
Yes.
And you wrote that, correct?
Yes.
Then you wrote, client is resistant, stating, quote, I don't want anyone like Amber's wife therapist. He has only made things worse, end quote. You see that?
Yes.
And you wrote that?
Yes.
And where it's quotes, I don't want anyone like Amber's therapist. He's only made things worse. That was something that Mr. Depp told you?
Again, as I have it in quotations, I assume he made that statement.
A little farther down, you wrote, throughout RN's visit, client maintains attention and is actively participating in conversation. Client consumed 3 vodka drinks during RN's seven-hour visit. Client did not eat during visit and drank water only with several prompts from RN. RN educated client on possible interactions between prescribed medication and alcohol. Client verbalized understanding but stated, quote, right now I need a little alcohol for all the bad things I'm going through, end quote. You wrote those lines?
Yes.
Say the document speaks best as to how many drinks Mr. Depp had?
Correct.
And that Mr. Depp drank 3 vodka drinks during your visit?
That's what my note says.
Then you said RN provided one-on-one emotional support and encouraged clients to limit and or abstain from alcohol and illicit drugs. You wrote that?
Yes.
You recall why you told Mr. Depp to abstain from illicit drugs?
No, but I did, and not just with Mr. Depp, but in my line of nursing, provide education always with any medication clients are on and contraindications.
You know if Mr. Depp ever took any illicit drugs during the 2014 to 2016 timeframe?
I don't know. I didn't witness him using any illicit drugs, so I can't speak to that.
Your Honor, at this point, the questioning switches over to questions for by counsel for Mr. Depp. That's all right with us, Your Honor. I'm sorry. Let's go ahead and break for the evening. We will see you in the morning. Just do not discuss the case and do not do any outside research. All right? And we'll have the rest of this tomorrow morning. Okay? Thank you. All right, so we'll see everybody at 10 o'clock tomorrow, okay? Thank you. Thank you, Ron.